What is up everyone, Josh from StartReplay.com here. Now today I'm going to be talking about the PSVR, which I've owned for well over 4 weeks, but sadly, due to moving house recently, I've yet to sit down and talk about it in great detail, which is why I'm here today. I'm going to be talking about the positives, the negatives, everything in between, my top gaming experiences and my worst gaming experiences. If that wasn't enough, I'm also going to be putting Sony's VR unit through its paces by comparing it to what is the most premium VR headset on the market, and that's the HTC VIVE. Do you really need to spend a ton of cash and have a high-powered PC in order to have a great VR experience? Well, hopefully, I'm going to answer that question for you today. If you do like the video, don't forget to give it a like, don't forget to subscribe for more content in the near future, and also hit the comments below if you have any questions. So the PSVR is a great headset for the mainstream audience because it has a fantastic price. It's £450 for the controllers, the headset and the camera that you need for tracking. In comparison, that's £320 less than the Vive or £290 less than the Oculus. Also bear in mind that any PlayStation 4, whether it be the Pro or one of the lower models, can run the PSVR. You need a high-end PC in order to run the Oculus or the Vive. For a package price of the Vive or the Oculus, or at least the Vive, with a HP desktop at the moment, that's £1,500. For the PSVR with a PlayStation 4 is $670. It's less than half the price of one with Vive or Oculus. It's amazing. Now it's plug and play, so it's really easy to get up and running. Unlike the Vive, in my case, I plug the sensors for the Vive into separate power points, and then I have them on little poles which I have to move around and calibrate each time I want to use the device. It's quite cumbersome, but with the PSVR, I just have the camera at the top of my TV permanently and I'm good to go. This little box sits next to my PlayStation and I have power going into there. I have a USB going to the back of my PlayStation 4 Pro, which I have, and then I have a HDMI from the PS4 and then one to the TV. That's pretty much it, and then I slide this back, plug in the headset at the front. Beyond that, of course, I need to calibrate the controllers, I need to calibrate where the actual headset lies in the space, but once I've done that, I just turn it on and everything's set up. Literally anyone could use this device and get up and running in no time. So the design, let's talk a little bit about how it's made. I think how Sony have managed to create such a comfy, good-looking headset is unbelievable. They've got a little band at the back here, so all you need to do is pull the band up, put your forehead to the top bit here, and then there you go. And underneath there's a small button, and if I press it, I can slide the screen towards my face, and that's me done. On the back there is a little adjuster to make it tighter if I want to make it a little bit tighter to my face. On the actual cord, there is the headphone jack to plug in headphones, and there's also the volume buttons, muting the mic and powering on the device. On the other side of the fence, with the HTC VIVE, the design again is very good. It's what you'd expect from a premium product, £780, which it is now on the market. It's a lot tighter on the head. Because of the Velcro on the side, it means that when I do put it on, I'm getting a very tight fit. And it also means that no light is coming in from underneath the device. Unlike the PlayStation VR, where because of the shape of my nose and it not hugging my face so tightly, which is good because it's comfortable to wear for an extended period of time, it does mean that light sometimes gets in from the bottom bits here. The actual rubber which sits on the inside of the device here is very supple and soft and easy to clean, because if you're wearing it for an extended period of time, it's going to get very sweaty. That's better opposite the band on the HTC, which when it gets very sweaty, you're going to have to wash it and dry it out, and it can get pretty mucky in a very short space of time. So yeah, the actual design and setup of the PSVR, I couldn't ask for more. Of course, with the HTC, you're playing around with lots of different graphics cards and a much more customizable plate of options versus that of a fixed platform such as the Sony PlayStation 4. Yet, on one or two titles that I played, such as Job Simulator, and Carnival Games on the PSVR and HTC VIVE, in which they're across both platforms, they looked near identical. So I was really impressed with how little difference there was in terms of visual fidelity. I mean, just look at games that aren't currently on the Vive and are currently PlayStation VR exclusive, such as Rocksteady's Arkham VR. It's a magnificent game. If you look at it, once you're in the game, it looks incredibly real, and they've done a superb job of showcasing the power of the PSVR, and it is phenomenal. This is a phenomenal device for the price and the games it provides and what it has going for it at this current time. You really couldn't ask for more. When you're spending hundreds of pounds to get an experience of VR, which is quite a bit different with tracking and walking around a room, that's to be expected. But for what Sony have on offer, I'm pretty blown away. So that's the good. But what about the not so good? Well, the PSVR uses old Move controllers for its tracking, and that's all good and well because I've had Move controllers since they came out many years ago, so I didn't have to buy any new equipment, and it wasn't that expensive of a venture for me. But compared to the tracking on the HTC Vive, in which it uses very advanced new controllers, and it uses the lighthouse tracking, which means you can actually walk around a room and get tracked with pinpoint accuracy, and it also removes pretty much entirely any motion sickness depending on what game you're playing. With the Move controllers being tracked with a camera on the TV, it's not quite the same because there are one or two hit or miss moments. It's relying entirely on the light that this orb emits and that the camera picks up. That means in some instances, when perhaps the room is too light, or if it's getting one or two reflections off a couple of items in the room, it can easily get confused. There weren't many times in which I encountered an issue with it, but there were one or two times in which I did. So that's why I kind of have to raise that as a little bit of an issue. But I am quite impressed by how Sony were able to use already existing tech from many years ago into a device such as the PSVR, which is just released and still provides pretty good tracking. Another negative is the fact that I did actually experience quite a bit more motion sickness on the PSVR than I have on the Vive, particularly when games on the PlayStation, and quite a few of them, tend to implement traditional controller movements. So you're moving with the stick, but you're not moving your body, so it does feel a little bit weird and you get that disconnect, and very quickly you can end up feeling a little bit woozy and feel like you're going to be sick. And there have been a handful of games which have made me feel sick, which I'll explain in my bad experiences. But then again, there have been games that have implemented a controller scheme quite well. And I did enjoy the games more where I was just stood still interacting with either my controller or the Move controllers, because I didn't experience any sickness. Or if I'm teleporting around a room, teleporting is the best way to move around in VR. Everyone knows that. Developers for Oculus and Vive that I've already experienced, you teleport everywhere you can because it removes that barrier of motion sickness. Lastly, rounding off the sort of bad points I've had with the PSVR, I'd say, as I've already mentioned, the light leakage of how I could I could see little gaps of light below my eyes because the shape of my nose, and I have quite a big nose, so the screen couldn't fit properly on. I can counteract that by putting like little padding or cloths there, but it's more of an inconvenience really. I don't want to have to do that all the time. The other side of that, with the fact that there's a little bit of a gap, means that if I have quite a hot face, the screen can fog up quite easily. On the Vive, because the headset is so close to your face and squeezed on there, and with the padding, that you don't really get an issue with that. But because the PSVR does have that gap at the bottom, it's very easy for hot air to rise onto the screen and for it to be very, very misty. You then have to pull the screen away from you and cool down a little bit. Whether I'd sacrifice how comfortable the device is just to rid the headset of that problem, for me, I don't think I would, because how comfortable it is at the moment is just perfect, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It is one of the best, most well-designed VR headsets on the market by a long shot. So well done, Sony, because you've done an incredibly good job with that. So, how about the games? On the whole, there are more great experiences to choose from than poor ones, but to help you sift through the dirt and find titles I recommend, here are my thoughts and scores on the many I've managed to play. It's no surprise, given I'm such a huge Batman fan, but Rocksteady's Arkham VR is an unforgettable experience. You actually feel like Batman as you're taken through a series of events that include puzzle solving and investigating crime scenes. It feels great and looks amazing too. It might be a bit short, but it's the perfect game to showcase the power and potential of the PSVR. The Playroom caught me off guard, least of all because it was free, but mostly because of the quality that was on offer. With a number of contained demos that each offer something slightly different, the Playroom also helps prove that VR isn't just a solo experience. It's a game filled with laughter and fun that gets your friends and family involved and not left out by the wayside. When it comes to driving games in VR, Drive Club has been one of my favourite experiences. Hurtling around a track using my wing mirrors to look out for other racers and drifting around corners was pretty exciting. Hitting the brakes hard whilst attempting to avoid other cars felt pretty real, even if it wasn't moving in real life. It might not be the full game, but its large roster of cars and tracks is more than enough for a full gameplay experience. Res is a series that always caught my imagination with its heart-pumping soundtracks and psychedelic visuals. Transferring the original game to VR feels like the perfect move. It might make you feel sick watching my recorded gameplay here, but when you're inside the game it's hard not to be captured by its addictive beat and style. Before playing in VR, I hadn't touched Super Stardust since its original arrival on PS3. I have great memories of clearing out wave after wave in this addictive twin-stick shooter. Now I couldn't feel more immersed as I sat above each planet whilst piloting my ship. Plus, the addition of a specific VR mode which pits you on the ground offers a neat alternative. I love horror. I also love Sony's Until Dawn, and though this on-rails shooter doesn't match the experience of the original game, Rush of Blood does a great job of conjuring up a spooky atmosphere in one of the best ghost trains I've ever been on. Talk about a great VR rollercoaster. Thumper is a rhythmic horror game and took me by surprise. It features a punchy soundtrack and deceptively difficult yet addictive gameplay. Hit your markers and don't mess up. I definitely recommend this. As a first-party title, PSVR Worlds is another selection of demos that perfectly showcase the headset's capabilities. My favourite experiences included Danger Ball and London Heist. The former tasks you with deflecting a ball with a white panel. The white panel will move to wherever you point your head. Simply save goals by looking. The latter focuses on your involvement in a London gang. During a certain segment I could hold a cigar and naturally I took a drag and exhaled. To my surprise, smoke came out of my mouth in-game as the headset's inbuilt mic picked up my breathing. I was absolutely amazed and didn't expect it to happen. It might be a simple game that tasks you with stacking blocks, but Tumble is a title that allows for a little more relaxation. You can take your time and figure out the best way to rest blocks without them, well, tumbling. At $7.99 it's affordable too, so I definitely recommend this as one of your first purchases. Of all the games I've played on the PSVR, I didn't expect Carnival Games to rank in my top experiences. Given a whole fairground to explore, there are tons of minigames to try your hand at, including knocking over milk bottles, target practice, and climbing tall structures. It's once again the simple, addictive nature of its gameplay that won me over. I wasn't forced to do anything overly taxing, I just needed to compete and could retry as many times as I liked. It's also incredibly easy for newcomers to pick up, something I experienced when my friends played for the first time. Entering the cockpit of a spacecraft feels like an experience made for VR. Valkyrie has you battling out in space, utilising a variety of different weapons. Graphically it's a showstopper on the PSVR, and there's nothing quite like looking around your cockpit whilst doing barrel rolls in space. Riggs is one of the best multiplayer titles on PSVR. It couples intuitive controls with fast-paced competitive gameplay. I might have felt a little bit sick at times, but overall I thoroughly enjoyed piloting a mech and aiming my gun's reticle via my head movement. Battlezone is another great way to play VR with your friends. Dashing around in a tank through its stylistic world is neat, and moving tactfully through an enemy's base and avoiding incoming fire is intense. Now to leave on a sound note. Where do I start? Weeping Doll offers a terrible control scheme and mixes in a lackluster narrative. It isn't scary because of its feeble attempts at horror, it's scary because it made me feel sick and didn't engage me at all. Avoid. I'm in two halves about Robinson the Journey. It's probably one of the best looking titles on PSVR, which is hardly surprising given the fact it's been made by Crytek, creators of the eye-watering Crysis series. Following the journey of a young man stranded on a strange planet, you're joined by an intelligent AI called Higgs, who offers a similar look and style to Portal's Wheatley. Movement is its hindrance, as once again, the use of traditional controls quickly boils down to a dizzying experience. Its narrative is pretty good, and its world is beautiful too, but it's not worth anything if you can't stay in it for long because you need a break every 5 minutes. Another narrative-driven title, Here They Lie falls victim to more control issues. I simply felt sick for most of my playtime, and to be honest, I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't pay attention to anything because I was too focused on not throwing up. Another dizzy time that I don't recommend. Ace Banana isn't as ace as it might sound. You use plungers to fend off monkeys and stop them from stealing your bananas, which is an awesome concept. The gameplay is simple and it's fun to perform archery, but at times I didn't know whether the game had major performance issues or if it simply played in a very bizarre way. I didn't know how to start a game, and when I finally figured it out, the controls messed up and it seemed like my character's placement was also broken. As an added note, it's probably worth mentioning a couple of free demos that offer some neat experiences. The Kitchen and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare's Jackal demo. The former is a small glimpse into using the PSVR with Resident Evil 7, and the latter is a fun dogfight demo that lets you take out as many enemies as possible. Overall, I've had a pretty good experience with the many titles available. The only sticking point is motion sickness, which, as long as developers opt for the correct control method, shouldn't continue being a big problem. I'm thoroughly impressed with Sony's VR headset. It's affordable, it's accessible, it's an incredible rival to its expensive competitors. There are always going to be caveats when it came to providing a much cheaper model on the market, but its differences aren't deal breakers. With all this in mind, I give the headset an 85 out of 100 for great. I think it's edging towards amazing, but there's still a little room for improvement, so I look forward to seeing what Sony have in store next. But for the meantime, Sony, well done for providing what you have. Is really an amazing achievement.